What's up guys, Frank Macaluso here from Garageaholic giving you another episode of Best Tools, Good Tools. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach than we did in the past, and we're going to actually build the tool that we actually are reviewing. And it is the Swag 20-ton press brake kit. I bought the Welder kit, which means it's a little bit cheaper, but I need to construct it myself. I want to show you guys how to do that today. We'll show you where to purchase it, how much it is, the different options that come with it, why I chose the options that I did, and what I plan to use the tool for after we complete it. So stand by guys, you don't want to miss this one. Now why would you want to build this kit? Well, this is a press brake, which basically means that you are allowed to use your 20-ton Harbor Freight press in order to make intricate brackets as shown here. You make some really cool brackets, and you can make full 90-degree bends and anything up to like a 3/8 inch thick, which is pretty cool. We need to build this thing, we need to weld it up, and I want to show you how in the very beginning how to go through this. Now the kit that I got has separate different size fingers. The fingers fit inside here, and you can put them in and you can move them side to side if you want to have different brackets that you want to bend certain parts of the bracket but not the whole bracket. So having different size fingers here that fits inside of this clamping device allows you to build all the different types of brackets that you want. And here's another size as well. So there's all different types of sizes. You can loosen these bolts. These bolts come with the kit, and you can literally loosen them up, slide the bracket wherever you want, add or delete different fingers, and custom bend brackets to your liking. Now, this is going to be very, very useful for doing engine swap type work where you need custom bracketry, especially if it needs to look good. So this is a really, really good investment in my opinion. First and foremost, these little tabs came with the kit. Now these little tabs are intended to be welded just like that. They're basically stop tabs, and it prevents the tool when put into the Harbor Freight press from going too far and falling off of the press. So these things were actually originally part of the kit as being part of the cutout, but during shipping the tabs broke, so they decided to make the tabs separate and have you weld them on yourself later. So let's weld these on, and let's then talk about the next step. All right, there's one tab, and there's the other tab. Now that the tabs are mounted, we want to take these two cylinders, we want to install them in here, right? These holes are very tight clearance, so you really need to use the press that you plan to use this in order to press these cylinders into the actual part. End up getting right inside of this hole. And I have basically pretty much the whole thing set up, and I wanted to press this in, but just enough to get it to protrude halfway through the hole so that I can fill the rest of this with weld. All right, you can see that I got them both pressed in. Nothing has been welded yet. Turning it over, you can see that I have a little bit on each side. Now these are not perfect, they are not straight, but they will be. So let's turn it up again. And now we need to make sure that they're straight. We have a straight rule, and you can see how bad it actually is. That one's pretty bad. And how's this one? This one actually is not as bad, right? So we got to make sure that they're straight in both dimensions, left and right, and then also this way. All right, turn this guy over. Now that I got them all squared up in both dimensions, I want to lay my bead down. I want to tack these guys in place, and I want to grind this down nice and smooth, because this is the bottom surface that's going to end up getting put on top of the actual press. All right, there is the finished weld, ground down, nice and flat and smooth. Let's turn this up. All right, let's move on to the next stage. All right, so we have these two tubes. We have this threaded steel piece that goes on top, mates up with all the holes down here. And then this is where all the fingers go in, right down in there. But this is actually supposed to be welded right to the edge there. And you got to make sure that that you're okay here, you're okay here. So these guys actually slip right in to these, just like that. And then the spring goes down in here like this, right? And when you press it down, it automatically it springs it back up to make it easy for you to get your part out. And then this guy, obviously, this is the last step of the process, but this is where we put an RV, right? So that needs to be welded in as well. But for now, we need to figure out how to get these guys lined up here so that it fits over those two tubes, rods, easily. All right, I think I got this placed exactly where I want. See, the height is set, and it's the same, flush up against the top. This guy can freely move. This guy here can freely move. And it looks like it's centered about the top here. I basically have it setting on some aluminum spacers just to get it set in a position so that I can tack it. Now let's take her off. Up and down. Move smoothly. Got it tacked in 3 locations on each side, so I know that it's going to be pretty robust. Let's put the springs on it. Ooh, it's looking like something. Welding is done on all the sides. Okay, this is a couple of inclusions there, but that one is a good weld. Now, I want to make sure that this thing lines up on top with all the holes. Looks like there's still a little bit of space there. It's hitting the top of the weld there. So I need to grind the edge of this weld down just a tiny bit on either side so that this mating plate can mate up nice and flat to its surface. So when I clamp it down, the fingers that are contained within that actually hold well. So I want to make sure that that's good. So let me grind that down. All right, excellent. Grinded down, grinded or ground, whatever you want to call it. Done. Now this thing can fit snugly on there. All the bolts can go through. And it should fit on here. We'll test fit that in a minute. Okay, so now my base is completed. Tabs, rods, finger brake assembly. I decided to put the other end on and put a couple of fingers in here just to see how it fits. But everything is tightened up. Rods, not rods, but the tubes are in. Let's put our springs on. And let's test fit it. Nice. Awesome. Great. Now, there are 2 more pieces here that need to be installed. There's these guys here that need to get, these carriage bolts need to be pushed through and welded from the backside, because this guy ends up getting installed there. This guy is on a slider mechanism that allows you, this guy here, to set your parts if you were to do repeated bends on the same part as if to make like a production part. And you basically put your 2 bolts in there, this guy sits here, and you can move it in and out if you're going to be bending something that requires a very specific distance from the actual bend. So it's pretty neat actually, but we need to do these bolts first. As you can see, we got to hit the inside of these because when we put our V in and weld that up, we won't be able to access this at this point, so we need to weld these bolts first. All right, now we got to get the tray installed. Now that we got those welds on those bolts, get the tray installed just like that. What we want to do is we want to center it. Beads. Honestly, this should be plenty of welding. I'm not going to lay a bead across the whole thing. It's just not necessary. Okay, so now the last step in this process is to get the collar on. This collar is a little bit oversized, quite a bit oversized for the Harbor Freight press, and it's going to swim in there. So we need to make sure that it's as centered as possible so that whenever we do install it, that they'll have enough tolerance to be, no matter where it goes, it'll fit. Now, as you can see here, there are 11 holes that are perfectly centered and evenly distributed amongst this brake. Because there's 11, that means that the 6th hole right here is going to be where the collar goes. And you want the set screw to face forward, and you want this to be as even as possible in the whole assembly. So something like that, right? And all we gotta do is just lay a couple beads on this piece here. Remember, this guy is removable, right? So we want this to remove or at least move like that, right? To allow the fingers to go in and out and smooth and whatever. Now, let's assemble and take a look at our work of art. So we have it all set up. Here it is right here on the 20-ton Harbor Freight press. As you noticed, I didn't use all the fingers. There's other different size fingers right here. I decided not to use them. But the beauty of this is that you can just unscrew these and put whatever fingers you want in there, whatever thickness or width size part you have. Now today I want to bend a 764, it's 125 thick actually, about an 1/8 inch thick piece of sheet metal, which is a respectable size sheet metal for most bracketry that you want to use on any type of automotive application. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in, just like that. We're going to pump. Once we make contact, we can actually use this piece here. Continue to clamp down. It's a little bit offset, and that's because it's bending on one side of the brake press instead of both, but it will even itself out. It'll even out. And once you get that level of resistance, you can see that it's bent on both sides here. You know that you're just about done. Loosen it up. The springs take action, springs it back up. We can take our part out. Look at that, it's actually more than 90 degrees, which is pretty neat. Really nice even bend all around. Pretty straight and true. I'm pretty happy with this, guys. I really am. All right, guys, that just about does it for today's episode of Best Tools, Good Tools. I am Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic. If you like this episode and you want to see more information, more tools that I like in my garage, and you want me to explain what they are, how they work, and why I think that they're useful for my application and engine swaps for BMWs and other cars, let me know. I'd love to hear your comments. Tell your friends, subscribe, like, comment, guys. Thank you so much for being a fan, and we'll talk soon. Later.